5 to 6 tons of weight fall into the cement. But the only problem was I was underneath it. Blood came out from the inside of my body, out of my mouth. Poof. And I just said, Lord, help me. All of a sudden, my spirit left my body and I went up into the roof of the garage. I went from feeling the worst pain that I've ever experienced ever in my life to perfect peace.
Bruce, welcome to God's Voice today. Your testimony is incredible. You were crushed under a semi-truck, left your body, saw angels, and then God brought you back with a creative miracle. So Bruce, let's start from the very beginning. What happened?
I owned a diesel repair business. I was doing an on-site repair of a truck. I'm at my house right now, and an hour south of here, it was November of 2006. Peterbilt logging truck in a big rectangular shaped truck garage. I was working with a mechanic Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, somebody I'd known since I was a little kid and a young guy. And we're at the last day, Thursday. It's at the end of the day. I was called in because this truck had a coolant leak. It was leaking antifreeze. And so I was called in to do that repair. That's what I did, was engine repair specialist. And so we got to the end of the repair. The motor was done because that's what I was called in to work on. There was 2 things left to do on the job. The front passenger's wheel had to be put back on, and the engine mounted air cleaner. Other than that, we're completely done. So the other mechanic's name is Leonard. So I say to Leonard, go ahead, start it up. Let's run the engine to test the repair to make sure it's no longer leaking coolant. So I'm putting my tools away. It's running maybe 15, 20 minutes. And Leonard comes up and taps me on the shoulder. And I just had a couple wrenches left to put away. And he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, before you go, he said, could you look at one more thing? And I had left my house that morning at 6 a.m., got on site at 7 a.m. It's an hour away. And when he said, would you look at one more thing? I didn't answer him. I remember looking, there was a clock right here to my right up on the wall. And I looked at the clock and I remember it was 6. I'll never forget. It was 6:10, a little after 6, and 6:15, 6:10 right in there. And he goes, would you look at it? I'm thinking, by the time I get home, if I left right now, it's going to be over a 13-hour day because I charge travel time. It's going to be over a 13-hour day. And I'm thinking, I don't want to stay anymore. And he could see the wheels turning in my head. And he goes, oh, no. He goes, I don't want you to stay late. He goes, but just diagnose it. He goes, maybe it'll be something simple. He goes, I got this dirty spotted engine. It must be seeping oil out of somewhere. He goes, I can't tell where it's coming from. He said, you diagnose it. I can schedule you to come back in at a later date. Or maybe it's something simple. You could tell me what to fix, whatever. So for anybody watching or listening today, if you're to stand in the front of one of these, what's called Class 8 trucks, the biggest semi trucks out there, they've usually got a big bumper, and there's usually that little bit of space. If you're standing in the front of the truck and you're going to look underneath that truck, there's usually just a little bit of space between the bottom of the bumper and the ground. And if you're getting under there and look, you'd see that the lowest thing to the ground in these trucks is the front axle. So I looked from the front of the truck because I'd never been underneath the truck. The whole job I'd done from the top. The other mechanic, my helper, had removed the wheel. He had removed the air cleaner. He had drained the coolant. He had drained the oil. He had done the other stuff. And so when I looked underneath there, in order to remove the passenger side front wheel, he had jacked up the front axle. And here's the thing on these trucks: you got the 2 front wheels that move when you turn your steering wheel, and you got an axle that goes from one side of the truck, the other side of the truck, and it's a big steel I-beam. It's what it is. It's a big steel I-beam that carries, and this isn't the weight of the truck, but this is the weight on the front tires, 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight. So 5 to 6 tons of weight on the 2 front tires. And Leonard had it jacked up with a bottle, what's called a bottle jack, underneath the passenger side of that axle. These axles are, like this deep front to back. And it's a big, pretty good size I-beam to carry all that weight. Right. And so he had jacked it up to remove that wheel so that we could get in from the passenger side to remove the cylinder head off the engine, because that's where the leak was. So like I said, I looked underneath there because I'm going to look at this dirty spot in his engine. I looked underneath there and I saw that when you jack something up as a mechanic technician, the proper way to do it, you jack it up. Jacks are lifting devices. They're not meant to hold weight. So you should jack it up and then put a jack stand or block underneath it and then take the weight off the jack to go onto the jack stand or the block. That's the proper way to do it. And I looked underneath it and I saw that there was just a jack and there was no blocks. To be completely honest, I had done that myself many times. Honestly, a shortcut. And I looked under there. I'm like, oh, this truck has been on the jack for 3 days. It's been running for 15 or 20 minutes. I'm good. It's not going to be a big deal. So there's a tool that mechanics use to go underneath vehicles called a creeper. And here's the thing with tools. For anybody that works with tools for a living, there is such a big difference between cheap tools and like professional grade real tools. And the problem with like a cheap creeper, like just because that was a tool, it was his creeper. They'll have little bitty small wheels, and it's so hard to roll across the cement because every garage floor has cracks, rocks, pebbles, whatever. And when you try to roll across the floor on a cheap creeper, the wheels, because they're small or plastic or whatever, they don't work right. It's just very, very aggravating. And I remember I was going to go underneath the truck, and he had just come out from underneath the truck on his creeper. And I looked down, and it was such a piece of junk. I looked at that creeper. It had 4 little wheels. It was plastic. There was no metal on it at all. It was I looked at it and I thought, I'm just going to start, I'm going to start swearing. As soon as I get on that thing, I don't even want to use it. And I looked in the back of my truck, and here's my Snap-on creeper with, 6 big monster wheels and a adjustable headrest and everything. But it was the end of the night. I just wanted to go home and go to, eat supper and go to bed. I'd already worked a long day. And so I didn't go get to save time, I didn't get my creeper. I got in that hollow core plastic piece of junk. And literally, I'm taking the time to tell this detail because that was when the truck did fall on me. That was the difference between me I would have been literally cut into 2 pieces. They would have taken my body out in 2 pieces versus just getting crushed down to 1 inch thick on one side and 2 inches thick on the other side. If I would have been on my creeper with a steel framework, right where that steel framework is where the truck fell on me, and I would have been taken out in 2 pieces. So I get on his, but I got in his plastic piece of junk. I go underneath the truck. I'm looking at the bottom of the engine for the leak that he wanted me to diagnose. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking what I thought it was, right? The jack is over here. The axle is suspended, and where I stopped to look at the front of the engine, the axle just turned out to be roughly above my like belly button, like in the soft part of your belly. And it's maybe just a couple inches above me. And like I say, this thing's got 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight on it. I'm looking at the bottom of the engine, and I yelled out to Leonard. I said, "Shut it off. I don't need the engine running anymore. We've basically verified the other leak. It's not leaking anymore. My repair is good. I think I've decided what this is." So Leonard gets up inside the truck to shut it off. And when he did, the truck kind of shifted because it's got air suspension, which is completely normal. So it kind of, he's getting in the truck and it's shifting. And I remember when the truck shifted, I saw movement over here on my left peripheral vision over here. And I turned my head in just in time to see the jack that he had put underneath the jack of that axle had slipped out when he got in and everything rocked. The jack had slipped out, and it was literally like just barely touching on the very edge of the axle, and it was rocking. It had slipped out, and it's still slipping and rocking. Before I could blink or do anything, the jack shoots out like a rocket, and this 10 to 12,000 pounds of steel fell, I don't know, a foot or whatever it was, and came down and hit the cement. So if you can imagine, 5 to 6 tons of weight fall into the cement, if you can imagine the sound, the explosion noise of steel on cement that would make, that's what happened. But the only problem was I was underneath it. So when this metal came down from the axle falling, when the jack slipped and it hit the cement, and what I heard is this big kabang. But the craziest thing was I heard the steel on cement kabang, but I also heard like swirling liquid is the only way I can describe. Turns out swirling liquid was me. And when the truck fell on through the middle of my body, basically between the bottom of my ribs and my pelvic, fell through the middle of me on impact. This wasn't later. When this truck fell through me, blood came out from the inside of my body, out of my mouth, and went on the cement. Poof. And when I saw the blood, I didn't even look down to see that I'd been crushed or anything. And I just saw the cement, and I just said, "Oh, Lord, help me." I remember saying it twice. I don't know why I said it the second time. I said, "Lord, help me" again. And I'm just going to stop here so that anybody listening knows when I say Lord, I'm referring to Jesus. That's exactly who I was talking to, was Jesus. So I didn't say Jesus, I said Lord, but that's who I meant. Lord, help me. I said it a second time. Then I looked down, and this axle is, it's deep, tall. It had fallen all the way through me. It's on the cement. I could reach over and touch where it's on the cement, but it's coming up at an angle because the driver's side wheel is still on. So if you could picture this big steel I-beam all the way down the ground on the passenger side fuel tank is smashed in, like the bumper on the passenger side, that whole front of the truck on the passenger side is on the ground because the wheel's not there, and the whole thing had fallen, right? But the driver's side wheel is still on, so it's coming up at an angle. and I'm on that plastic hollow core creeper. So one in the truck had fallen through the middle of my body. When I did look down on my left side, like I said, the axle's on the ground, but right up against the left side of my body, there was maybe, and I'm not exaggerating, there's about an inch between the bottom of the axle and the cement. That's the thickness of my body with the creeper. The plastic hollow core creeper collapsed to nothing. On this side, it was maybe double. It was like a couple inches of space between the bottom of the axle and the cement. I was literally just a little bit thinner than my spine in the middle of my body because the radiology reports talked about L4 and L5 vertebrae. So I don't have a belly button anymore, but where I used to have my belly button to my back is my L4, L5 vertebrae. And the doctors tell me, and those, according to radiology reports, L4 and L5 were spider cracked, D-shaped. It chafed my spinal cord just a little bit. So the truck is on me. It's got me pinched down right there on my snap-on creeper. If I would have taken the time to get my creeper, right there's a steel cross member, and the thickness of the framework, the steel framework of my creeper was the thickness of the space between the bottom axle cement. So there would have been no space for me if I would have been on my creeper, and it would have sheared me into two pieces instead of crushing me down to 1 inch and 2 inches. It would have just sheared me. So getting on that plastic piece of junk, which I never would have normally, that was a God thing. That was a difference between me being cut in half versus just crushed down. So like I say, there's an inch of space here, a couple inches of space here. Vlad, I can't even tell you how bad the pain was. It was absolutely off the charts. Horrendous pain. And so the jack slipped out before he could shut the engine off. He got down, the engine's still running. It's down on me. And he got down out of the truck, and the bumper's back here behind my head because I just gone just underneath the front of the truck to where I was, in the front of the truck, you're out of sight. It was a conventional truck for anybody that matters to. But so behind my head is the bumper, and he's looking at me from underneath the bumper like I'm laying on his creeper looking back, and we got eye contact like this, and his eyes were like when somebody goes into shock. He wanted the shock. He just froze up, and I'm saying, call 911, shut it off, all this stuff I'm saying, and he was frozen. He just staring at me like this. It was a look of he had jacked up the truck. He had not used the safety equipment. You could tell it was an accident. It wasn't his fault. It was my own fault because I went underneath there and I should have looked. That I did look, and I thought I'd be fine, and I wasn't. But either way, the look that was on his face was a look of guilt, horror, because he'd known me since I was, young, and he just froze. And I'm looking at him, and I kept saying, please, Leonard, please. Finally, he shook out of it. He shut off the truck. He called 911, whatever. But it's in the middle of nowhere, as you'd expect a logging business to be, especially here in rural Wisconsin. So it's a volunteer fire department. He knew that. He knew it's going to take quite a while for these guys to show up. So he went and got the jack, and he's trying to figure out how he could get this truck off of me, right? Because it's got me crushed down. And he couldn't put the jack back underneath the axle because the axle's on the cement. So I'm watching him. He's right here next to me, and he's trying to figure out what he can do. Well, for anybody that's watching today that isn't in the technical stuff, there's a big leaf spring on each side of the truck in the front there that axle is connected to, and that's the suspension for the truck. And so because the axle's on the ground, he couldn't put the jack underneath that anymore, but the axle's connected to that big leaf spring. So he put the jack underneath the leaf spring. But the problem is the leaf spring is shaped like an arch, so it's on a curve. So I'm looking on my left. He slides the jack underneath the front part of the arch of that leaf spring. And I said to him, don't do it. Not there. Don't jack it up there. It's just going to slip because it's on an angle, not flat, And I'm saying, don't do it. And he's telling me, I don't have any other place. There is no other spot. And he's pumping the little jack handle, and I'm watching the jack literally slip. As he's pumping, I'm going, no, don't do it. And it caught. And now the truck starts going up, even though it's barely hanging on. Now it starts going up, and I'm going, oh, no. So he's, the little handle, he's pumping it, and the truck comes up. And as soon as he got the truck off of my body, I'm able to look down and see my whole body for the first time, from top to bottom, because the axle's so tall. When it fell through me, all I could see was from the front side of that axle up. I couldn't see the lower half of my body at all because it had fallen through me, right? So now that he jacked it up off my body, I've got a work uniform, the name of my company, Bruce's Mobile Service, Bruce, blah, blah, blah. A couple patches here, regular technician uniform. But when he took it off, right at the edge of my ribs, like the right edge of my rib cage, in fact, up on the edge of my rib cage, because I it clipped 2 ribs on the left side, but none on the right side. So I must have been underneath there just a little bit of angle. But from there, right at the edge of my ribs, it went my uniform went straight back down towards my back, followed basically along my spine, and came back up my pelvic. And literally, it was a flat spot across my body that there's nothing to compare to. There's nothing in real life I'd ever seen. There's nothing. So it's like I'm looking at myself, and the only thing that my brain could pull up to compare it to was cartoons. And I know that sounds crazy, but like cartoons from when I was a kid, when the truck runs over the Acme truck runs over Wile E. Coyote, and he's got the flat spot, or the other one where the rock lands on him and he's flat like the pancake, like that. That's the only thing underneath the truck. This was not later. It was right in the spot. I'm looking at myself, and the thought was, it's cartoonish. That's what this is and it looks like a cartoon. And the pain, again, absolutely off the charts. But as I looked at my body with that flat spot, the thought came to me was, there's no way that anybody can look at their body, be like this, and be alive. It's impossible for me to be alive and be like this. And that's the next thought. You're not going to live. You're going to die. There's no way anybody could live like this. So those are the thoughts that are going through my head as I'm looking at my flat spot in the middle of my body. Like I said, just a little bit smaller than my spine in the middle, even thinner on the left side and thicker on the right side. So kind of at an angle like that, a wedge. So I'm looking at it like that. And what we found out later, when the truck had fallen on me, I had 5 places that major arteries were completely severed. So when the axle was on those 5 spots that were severed, it had all it all pinched off. But as soon as he took the truck off of my body, the doctor said that's when I would begin to bleed out. That's when I would have begin to immediately bleed out. Well, the thing is, it's arteries, and it's 5 places that the arteries are severed. And I was told later it wasn't a total of 5 arteries. It was like, maybe I think he said 3 major arteries, but it was severed in 5 places. So 5 complete chops and 3 major arteries, something like that. And I'm pumping out my blood internally. And I felt like, I didn't know why at the time, but as soon as he took the truck off me and I saw this flat spot, it was like this incredible weakness is the only way I could describe it. Like a incredible weakness took over my body, and I couldn't, it was like, I don't even know how to just complete weakness. Besides a crazy pain, complete weakness. And I'm looking at myself flat like that, and I'm looking at the jack, and I thought it was going to slip and fall on me again. And I started telling him, begging him, get me out front of this truck, like take me out, pull me out. And he wouldn't do it because most people have been told you don't want to move somebody with a back injury. He could see I've got a flat spot across my belly. Obviously, I've got a back injury. So he's like, I'm not touching you. I've called 911. I'm not going to touch you. So I panicked. I'm in shock. I'm freaking out. I reached back, and that chrome bumper is just back here behind my head. And that time in my life, I had pretty good upper body strength because of working with heavy equipment a lot and stuff. I could do a lot of pull-ups, something like that. And I grabbed the bottom of the bumper. The creeper is flat in the middle, but the wheels are still working. And it took everything I had, but I dragged myself out this far, grabbed the bottom bumper and dragged myself out this far. So now like just my, shoulders or whatever is sticking out from like the front bumper. But I looked underneath, and if the jack slips, it's going to fall on my legs. So I thought, all I got to do now is put my hands, because I pulled myself out like this. If I just put my hands on the front of the bumper and just push out and straighten out my arms, if it falls, then it'll miss my legs. That's what I was thinking. I'm just going to do that last, because I looked underneath there. I pulled myself out, and I see it's going to fall on my legs if it falls. So I thought, all you got to do is do this last push. And I wanted to do that last push, and I couldn't do it, even though I just dragged myself out, that far. And I remember thinking that you could do this. Like, this is easy. And it was like, I couldn't do it. And I looked down, and I had a short sleeve work uniform, and my bicep was just totally, it was shaking. My arm was shaking so fast. It was like a blur. Like, I don't even know how to, it was like so fast. It was like a blur. And I remember looking at my arm shaking like that and having no power, no strength, everything just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And I was thinking, this is it. And I'm trying to push, and my arm was shaking like that. And right then was when the first time that I guess consciously realized that I couldn't breathe. When the truck had fallen on me, it collapsed the bottom of both lungs. I tried to talk, I guess I found out later from somebody later, they said that when I was trying to talk, it was just like mumbles. They couldn't understand what I was saying, apparently, at the end. But either way, I tried to do that push. I couldn't. My arm was shaking. And I'm trying to get my next breath. And it was like, I couldn't take in the next breath. And so I'm literally doing this. I'm going, trying to take a breath in, and I couldn't. My heart is racing because my body's in shock. And Vlad, I don't know if you ever had this, but like when you're like running or active and really physical and you can hear your own heartbeat, you know what I mean? I can hear your own pulse. So I'm underneath there, and my heart, because I'm in shock, is like just racing. And this is the craziest thing, but I literally heard my heart stop. It went bop, 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 bop. Just like I say it every time, just like you shut off an engine is what it reminded me of. I was listening to my heartbeat, bop, 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 and it stopped. And on the last beat, literally the very last beat, all of a sudden my spirit left my body, and I went up into the roof of the garage. So now I'm up here in the roof of the garage, 14, 15, 16 feet, whatever it is, looking down. And let me just stop here and say that I went from feeling the worst pain that I've ever experienced ever in my life, to perfect peace. That's the only, I struggle with words, but perfect peace is the best way I can describe it. So it was like going from the worst I've ever felt to the best I've ever felt. It was like the first time I could breathe. It was like, and I don't mean just because I was having a hard time breathing or anything. I mean, it was just like perfect peace the Bible talks about. It was like this best ever. So let me just stop here and say, if you're a Christian watching this and you're afraid of dying, don't be, because I don't care if this makes people mad. It's going to be the best day of your life. The day you die as a Christian is going to be the very best day of your life. And so I'm up there experiencing the best ever, looking down, completely divorced from the situation below me, so much that I don't even know that I could see everything. I didn't even know that the guy under the truck was me. I mean, I'm just watching it all. The volunteer fire department people are, showing up onesie twosies, and they're just all standing around talking. Nobody's doing anything. The reason why they're not going to do CPR is because I had a massive chest injury. So they've called MedFlight. I've got this massive chest injury. And all of a sudden I quit breathing. Right. So at this point, they're just quietly standing around talking. Leonard, the other mechanic, because I know him since I was young, I'm above looking. He's on his knees. And he's running his fingers like on top of my head, through my hair, whatever. And he's just crying and apologizing. He's saying stuff like, I should be the one that's dead, not you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm such an old fool. Like that kind of stuff. And it didn't make up in the ceiling. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel sad. I didn't even care. I was just like, I could hear him crying. I could see him run his fingers through that guy, which I didn't know was me. And nothing. I had felt no negative or bad emotion. I was just watching it all happen, watching from above. And it was like, so I know you're a camera guy, so you know what I'm saying. But like when you're watching a movie and they got the camera really tight on something, and that's what it was like. I was like really tight. My view was really tight on Leonard and me. But then it was like the camera panned out, even though I was still in the same position. It was like my view panned out. And that's when I realized there was an angel on each side of him. So Leonard is like 6'1", 6'2", and he's on his knees. And there's an angel on their knees on each side of them, but their heads are like, I'm just going to say approximately 2 feet taller than his. So it made, approximately 8 feet tall angels. I've studied the Bible now, looked up every single time angels are mentioned. It's like 290 sometimes in the Bible from beginning down that angels are mentioned. And sometimes they've got wings. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they look like normal people in the Bible. Sometimes they don't. But these two angels, they look like normal guys. They were in white shining robes. They would have been like a normal man, except they were 8 feet tall and very muscular. Like there was like big, broad shoulders, and they had the white robe. And that's another thing. It mentions a couple times in the Bible about their white shining robe. And it was, the robe was literally emanating white light. I don't even know how to describe it other than that. It was like they were glowing. They were both men. They had long hair. They both had long hair that went way down their back. They had a belt. They didn't have wings. And they looked like matching, like they could have been identical, twins. And the one from the driver's side I never got to see their face. I'm watching from above. I never got to see their face, but I know they're men. And I say this too. They were guys with long hair. And sometimes I wear short hair, whatever. That's what I like. But sometimes church people, religious people get weird about guys with long hair. I'm telling you what, I think the people that get religious and weird about guys with long hair are going to be a little bit surprised when they get to heaven. That's all I'm going to say. Because these two angels had long hair and they were men. So the one reaches over from the driver's side. He puts his hands in the middle of my body. The other one reaches over and puts his hands in the middle of my body. And I'm watching them and I go to myself, oh, look, there's angels are down there to help that guy. That's nice. I mean, I don't know that the guy's me. I'm just like, oh, watching it all happen. And people are quietly, respectfully staying around. He's crying. The angels got their hands in the middle. Everybody had come in from, okay, so this garage is like a shoebox, right? And my truck, my service truck was nothing more than a rolling toolbox. And I've got it backed up to the front of this Peterbilt truck. I'm up here, my spirit's up here in the ceiling, looking down at an angle, watching it all happen. And everybody had come. It's a volunteer fire department. Everybody coming through the front door, except the last two people. The last two people came in the wrong door. They came in a back door. And I'm just going to stop right here and say this. I spent the next year in and out of the hospital. In fact, in my life, I have spent a little bit more than a year in the hospital in my life. And when I got out of the hospital after all this, I wanted to go back to that volunteer fire department and tell them, thank you, for what they did, blah, 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 whatever. And so I called the chief. He said, yeah, well, it'll be a surprise. We hold a monthly meeting. Show up at this time before everybody gets here. I'll put you in a room. And then when I start the meeting, I'm going to pull you out and you come out and say thank you or whatever you want to say. So there was 30 people in that volunteer fire department room that night. This is a year after the accident. And I'm just, again, rabbit trail, but it's back to this. Two people that came in the wrong door. It was the only woman, a red-haired woman. Her name was Shannon. And there was a gray-haired guy, the only gray-haired guy. They came in that back door and they came up. And for I don't know, the whole year I was in the hospital and everything, I wondered in my head, why'd they come in the back door? I mean, it's just like this stupid detail, but it's like everybody came in the front door. I'd worked at this, I'd been called to work at that facility as a sublet mechanic multiple times. I'd never come through that door. I'd always coming through the main driveway. So when I met this lady, I asked her, anyway, that night of the meeting, there's 30 people in the room and I went around. Only two people were at the scene of the accident before I passed, before my heartbeat stopped. There was two people there. The first two people got there before I went up to the ceiling, right? That was it. After that, I was up here and just my carcass is down here. I was able, in a group of 30 people, I went around that room and I pointed out 10 people had come to the scene of the accident. And a little bit over a year later, I was able to identify 8 of those 10 people in a room with 30 people. Wow. I was able to go around. I said, you were there, you were there, you were there. And the easiest two was the gray haired guy and the lady, because they were the only two, right? And I said, you and you. And I said, but here's the thing. In front of everybody, I said this. You guys came in the wrong door. Why? Everybody else came in the main door. You guys came in the back door. Why? They looked at each other and it's been over a year. They're like, what? I said, everybody else came in the front door. You guys came in a back service door, came up the driver's side of the truck. I said, why? How did that even work? Because in my mind, the only way to get in that shop is through the main. I mean, it was like this detail was stuck in my head and I'd seen it from above. And they had to talk about it, think about it. Like, oh, that's right. We missed the main driveway, saw the flashing lights. There's a secondary gravel driveway and we came up to the back of the shop and that's all we came to the back door. It's just like this little stupid detail. But that proves that the real Bruce was in the ceiling. Because at that point, it had been minutes with no heartbeat, no pulse. Anyway, so this woman, her name's Shannon, and I believe you had her on your show already. She comes up the driver's side of the truck. She gets down between the angels, and she's feeling for a pulse. And so I'm looking down from above, and on the passenger side front corner were 2 men. Leonard was the one still above me crying. She moves him out of the way. He goes to the driver's side corner. So as I'm looking down the front, the hood is now shut. You got this big bumper. You got the radiator shell. You got the headlights. And just the top of me sticking out, from underneath the truck. And the angels were there. Leonard was there. She gets up. She comes into the driver's side. She moves Leonard out of the way. She gets down. She's feeling for a pulse. Now Leonard's over here. The angels are still there. But there's 2 guys in the front corner. And the one guy, he was wearing like what I call farmer bibs. They're like the light gray bibs with the dark blue stripes. And he was a big dude. I remember he's a big guy. And there was a littler guy next to him. And the big guy had his arms crossed. And he uncrossed his arms and he said to her, she was feeling for a pulse. He said, it's too late. He goes, it's too late. He's already passed. And she ignores him. And he said it again, it's too late. And she says, what's his name? And when she said, what's his name? As I'm looking from above, Leonard goes, Bruce Vanetta. And she starts doing this. I'm watching from above. She starts doing this. Bruce Vanetta, open your eyes, come back. And she keeps getting louder and louder. All the other people were, the other 8 or 9 people, whatever, they're all first responders, volunteer fire department, whatever. They're all quietly, respectfully standing around talking until she started doing that. When she started doing this come back, they all stopped talking. I'm watching from above. And they all turned their head and looked at her like, crazy lady, what are you doing? And she kept getting louder and louder and louder. And Vlad, the only way I can describe it, I did not know that that was my name. And this sounds weird, but the only way I can make it is it sounded a little bit familiar. Every time she said Bruce, it just like, that's the only way I can say it. It sounds familiar. I know it sounds weird, but it sounded familiar. So my spirit starts creeping down. And it seems like when I got about halfway, my spirit came back into my body. I feel like it came through my head, through the top of my body. So when my spirit comes back in my body, my heart miraculously starts. My spirit's back in, my heart starts, and my eyes, and it's like I go from feeling the best I have ever felt in my entire life to feeling the worst I have ever felt in my entire life. And as soon as my heart started, I came back in, immediately the first thing that came to me was, 4-letter word that means fertilizer. I'm the guy underneath the truck. It's me. I remember, and then it was like, it came back me like a flip card. That's exactly what it was like, a flip cards. And I saw it. Oh, that's right. The truck fell on me. It's me. I'm the guy. And I was like, oh no, I'm the guy. And it hurt so bad. And I remember saying, God, I don't want this. I don't want this. My heart stopped. My spirit left my body. And I went back to lift the garage. And I know some people struggle with that. The only way I can make sense of that is I think it's free will. I think because God is a God of free will. And I was saying, God, I don't want this. It hurts too bad. He's like, okay. My spirit leaves my body. I'm up in the roof of the garage. And I'm right back in the spot I was. I'm looking down. I can see her. I can see the angels. But this time what was different was a tunnel opened up going out of the roof of the garage, like at a 45-degree angle, going up. And the tunnel was like a million miles long. But there was a bright light on the end of that tunnel. And I know heaven was on the end of that tunnel. I knew that Jesus was there waiting. And I got really excited. And I got in the tunnel. I'm like, woohoo, we're going to meet Jesus. Done with this crappy world. And I'm like, rocketing away. And I can even tell you, I love fast cars. I love fast motorcycles. I love G-force. And it doesn't even make sense to me why I felt G-force in the spirit, because I didn't have a body, but I felt G-force, and it was like, I like it. And it's like, woohoo, going to meet Jesus, like in a fast car, right? In his tunnel. And I'm like, I was getting like halfway there. And all of a sudden I hear it, Bruce Vanetta, come back. And I got stopped in the tunnel. I got sucked backwards. I never made it to heaven. I get sucked backwards. Now I'm back in the roof of the garage. I look down. I can see the angels. I can see this lady. I never met her first, complete stranger. I didn't know who she was. I'm watching on. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh no. My spirit comes back into my body. My heart starts a second time. And I open my eyes. And so Shannon's there. I can see her face. And I had looked from above and I had seen the angels, right? So I looked on my left and I looked on my right and I couldn't see the angels anymore. Like they were gone. And I'm looking and they're not there. I'm like, oh God, why did you take the angels away? I need them. It hurts so bad. I need them. I couldn't see them and it really scared me because I couldn't see the angels anymore. And I remember closing my eyes and it hurting so bad, and the commotion, everybody's running around because they were all standing around talking until she did what she did. I found out later, she was like a 2-month-old baby Christian. She prayed me back to life. She was praying me back to life and she was slapping. So she prays me back in, I come back in and everybody's now running around frantic. And I was like, it hurts so bad. And I remember just closing my eyes and there's this chaos, this pain, incredible pain. And right there in that craziness, God spoke to me. I didn't see anything, but I just heard this. And it was, what struck me was there's all this chaos. All the people are now running around. Everybody's freaking out. But this voice was so calm. And he wasn't freaking out at all. It was just like so calm. And he just calmly, very stable, very calm, just said, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight. And it's going to be a hard fight. And that's one thing I really love about God. He always tells the truth. And it has been a really hard fight. And he said, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight. It's going to be a hard fight. And I said, screw it. I don't want to fight. And my heart stopped and I went on the roof of the garage. I felt perfect again. That's what I've wanted my whole life, that feeling of peace. And I'm looking down and there were those angels that I couldn't see. They were still there. But the problem was I couldn't see them with my earth eyes. But back in the spirit, I could see them again. The tunnel opened up. I got in the tunnel. I started going towards Jesus, happy to meet him. And Miss Persistent baby Christian wasn't having it, man. And she was, come back, come back. And my spirit came back out the second time out of the tunnel. I looked above, I could see the angels. My spirit comes back down in my body. My heart starts the third time. Shannon's face was right here. And she says, Mister, you're on the verge of life and death. And I remember thinking, lady, you have no idea. And she goes, what do you have to fight for? She goes, do you have a wife? Do you have kids? What do you have to fight for? And when she said that, I knew it was God talking to her. It wasn't later. It was right there, right in that moment. I knew God was talking. It was a woman's voice. It was her voice, but I knew it was God. And God was reminding me, because when the truck found me, it was such a crazy immense pain. And I didn't think about being married to having 4 little kids. And she says, Mister, what do you have to fight for? Do you have a wife? Do you have 4 kids? And it was like another slap in the face, because also like, oh my gosh, that's right. I'm married and I got 4 little kids and they need a dad. And she says, what do you got to fight? Stay here and fight. Don't close your eyes. You're leaving. Don't close your eyes. You keep leaving. Stay here. Don't close your eyes. And I remember thinking about, okay, if it was up to me, I'll be honest to say, I struggled with suicidal thoughts as a young person a lot, and up through different years of my life. And that was exactly what I wanted my whole life, was that peace. And if it was up to me, man, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be on this show with you. I'd be gone a long time ago, 18 years ago. But it came down to my wife and my kids. I'd stay for them. And so I did. And I kept my eyes open, and then they ended up taking me. And it's a long story. They called med flight, but they didn't call an ambulance. And then the med flight came and the med flight left. And then the ambulance came and took me to the little town, and the helicopter came back and picked me up from that little town to take me to our state's biggest trauma center, where they operated on me. On and off, that night, 2 guys operate on me. Another guy comes in. The head of the trauma department gets called in, and he operated me. It's 2.5 hours by car south of here. So my wife and a bunch of people that she called, whoever, my mom, my wife, some people from church, they drove down there, and, they operated on me hours and hours and hours and whatever. And the doctor came out, and he told my wife what she relayed to me later is, he told my wife, he said, in all my years, he was the head of the trauma department, and he'd been there for a long time. And this is our state's biggest trauma center. And he said, in all my years of running the trauma department, he said, I've never seen a body so badly traumatized and the person make it here alive. And he said to my wife, your husband must have one hell of a will to fight. He goes, but I don't expect him to live through the hour. Cross your fingers. So my wife said to him, I'm not going to cross my fingers. I'm going to pray. The only thing that she brought with her when she left our house was a Bible. She ended up never leaving my side for the next 3 weeks. And so anyway, they operated on and off on me, kept me in an induced coma, operated on and off that whole week or whatever. And it was a long, ugly, man. I'd get out of the hospital. I'd go back in. Something bad would happen. I'd go back in. I'd get out. I'd go back in. I'd be out a couple of days. I'd go in for a month. In and out, in and out, in and out. Surgery after surgery, thing after thing. And it was long. He said, if you want to live, you have to fight. It's going to be a hard fight. And I'll just be honest and say, man, there was so many times in the hospital, even though I saw the angels, even though I knew God had sent them, he sent this lady to bring me back to life. There was lots of times in the hospital, I just begged God to let me die because it hurt so bad. And I had to learn to walk again and all of it. And it was hard. It was really hard. I didn't get to eat for a long time. They fed me intravenously. I'm dying. So anyway, I'm literally starving to death, dying in the hospital because the truck fell in your small intestines sit like right underneath your belly button. And that's right where the truck fell on me. So it destroyed my small intestines. Doctors have told me small intestines, average length of the small intestine for human is like 18 to 20 some feet in length. That's the average. So for an adult. And in 2006, they had this number, and I don't know why they use metric because I mess it up all the time when I try to convert, but they had told me that in order to live, the doctor told us, in order to live, even a few years, you need about 100. Back then, they said you need at least 100 centimeters of small intestine to live, a little bit. To live, you need 100 centimeters. Well, my intestine was all destroyed, and they pieced together like 3 pieces that were the least damaged. They sewed them together. And so the accident happened in November, and like March of the next year, I'm still in the hospital. March next year, one of those pieces they tried to save died. And so they had to do another surgery, and they took that piece off. So now I'm under the 100 centimeters, under the amount that they say I'm going to be able to live. I lose 65 pounds. Vlad, if you saw me, 65 pounds less than I look like somebody straight out of a concentration camp. You can see my skull. You can see every bone in my body. I'm dying. I'm wasting away. They're feeding me intravenously, but I'm still dying in the hospital. I'm wasting away. And God wakes up this guy named Bruce Carlson, who lived in New York. He, at that time, woke him up and told him at 5 a.m. and said, buy a plane ticket, fly to Wisconsin, pray for this guy. I'll do a miracle. He told his wife, he told his pastor that day, but he didn't do it. The next morning, God did it again, woke him up at 5 a.m. and said, I told you, buy a plane ticket, fly to Wisconsin, pray for this guy, I'll do a miracle. And he did it. And I remember looking it up, and he paid over this is 2006. And the guy paid out of his own pocket over $900 for a ticket to come pray for basically a stranger. And he did, and he showed up and he prayed for me in the hospital. And when he did, it's a cool thing, but I felt the power of God come out of his hand and go into my intestines, and I felt my intestines coming back. And when they did the test, people try to disprove this. They can't, because it really happened. And they got all the measurements of the before, and they got the afters. There's before and after, so it can't be disproven. God did a creative miracle and gave me back, they say, half my intestines. I've got half my intestines. So 18 to 20 some feet length, that makes half mean roughly 9 to 11 feet is what they're saying I'm having. But at one point I was less than 100 centimeters. So God did a creative miracle when that guy prayed and gave me whatever the difference of that is. I've screwed it up before, so I'm not even going to say whatever the difference of all that is. That's what I got. And that's why I'm alive here all these years later. And so anyway, I've it was a long, ugly process. God had called me to ministry when I was a young man, but I ran away. Wasn't obedient, ran. And so I finally was obedient, and we started this ministry. January 1st, 2008, I was still in the hospital. When it officially started, I was still in the hospital with my last, I just had my last operation December of 2007, my last major operation in the December of 2007. And anyway, we started it while still in the hospital, Sweet Bread Ministries, January 1st, 2008. We've been doing it ever since. I didn't get to do much that first year because I was still in like crazy rehab and all that. But anyway, we've been ever since then. I've been just traveling on doing what we're doing right now. I share this testimony, and people go, oh, I used to let people call me a minister. I used to let people call me different titles like that, but I don't anymore. I don't like it. It's, sorry. Here's the deal. I'm just a regular guy that absolutely did not deserve God's mercy or grace. Not before the accident, and not after the accident. I don't deserve it. Mercy means not getting the punishment we deserve, not getting the punishment we deserve. Grace means getting the blessings we don't deserve. And it says his mercies are new every day. And I thank God that his mercies are new every day for people like me. So my story, my testimony is a story of God's mercy, because I'm the last person I think that probably would deserve it. And yet he did it. He sent a lady to bring him back to life. He sent 2 angels, and all he said was, Jesus, help me. Then he sent a guy to pray for me. And I'm going to try my best for whatever God gives me for the rest of my life to tell people this testimony, that God is alive and well, that he loves us even though we don't deserve it, that he's a good God. Despite all the bad things in this world, he's a good God. And I've struggled with that because I had a pretty rough childhood. And I've struggled with being mad at God a lot of my life. And even the fact that he'd bring back the guy to life who struggled with suicide, it almost seems like a joke. But it isn't. And God's real, and he loves us. And I just want people to know that. And I want people to think about that this world isn't the end. And when we die, there is a future. And you got to make a decision. We've got to know that Jesus loves us and he wants us to be with him. It says twice in the Bible that God wants all people to go to heaven, but he says people won't. And it's not because he makes them go to hell. It's because some people choose not to receive what Jesus did. And the Bible says Jesus came to this earth, died a horrible price, but rose 3 days later, paid the price for everybody's sins so that we're all sinners. And if we receive his forgiveness, we get to go be in heaven where there is no sin because he robes us with his righteousness. And, I know that day I was going to heaven and I know I didn't deserve it and I don't deserve it now, but yet I was going. It was just because of him, what he did, not because of me. And so I just want to tell that to people and so that they can make their own choice. And look, I wasn't raised Mr. Church guy, Mr. Holy guy. I lived a life far from that. As you and I were talking about, Vlad, I've been, motorcycle guy, drug and alcohol guy, rebellious guy. That's been me. So if God would send angels for me, if God would send a lady to bring me back to life, if God sent a guy to come pray in the hospital, multiple people to pray in the hospital for all this stuff to happen, then the Bible is true. God loves us even though he doesn't deserve it. And I just want people to, even people say, that they struggle and they say, oh, I don't believe in God. God is so big that if you just give him a chance and say, God, if you're real, show me. I fully believe he does. I believe he will because that's how much he loves us. He will show you if you reach out. So I just want to encourage anybody watching today, if you're struggling with the existence of God, see, I don't struggle with the existence of God. I struggle with other things about God, just to be completely honest, but not the existence of God. And I can't. I had an experience as a 5-year-old child. And anyway, that was the start of my relationship with God. But either way, he's alive and well. He's real. He loves us even though we don't deserve it. And I just want people to know that. So I guess, I don't know. That's about it, Vlad.
Hey, before we get back to the episode, my father has a free gift for you. So let me explain. For those of you that don't know, my father was an underground minister in Kiev, Ukraine. My father risked his life preaching the gospel on the streets of Kiev, Ukraine at the time when it wasn't popular or allowed. And he also raised a family of 9 children in the most hostile environment. There's so many lessons that he learned throughout his journey. And for years, I've been begging him. I was saying, Father, please write a book about your life, about your journey. And he would always dismiss it as, who wants to read a book about my life? And I was like, my children, me. And so, you know what? Finally, he sat down, he wrote the book. He did it in like 1 week. I translated the book to English, and both of us, we want you to have this book for absolutely free. And the way to get this book is super simple. Go to Instagram, find me at God's Voice Today, and send me a private message with the word book. And I will automatically send you a link to get it. And now, let's get back to the episode. Enjoy. Man, Bruce, I decided to get a standing desk. I was like, you know what? I interview people for hours. I should probably stand. It's better for me. But your story, man, I got lightheaded there. Just listening to the details, how painful it was. But in the middle of all that, it's interesting how God uses people, right? He used Shannon. He used your wife and many other people to join in prayer. Amen. But one thing that you said that really stood out to me was your name. You said it kind of sounded familiar, but you didn't really know who that was. What do you make of that?
I think because we're made of 3 parts, body, soul, and spirit. What left was my spirit. That's the eternal part that God puts inside of us. So I left my carcass, my flesh, and my soul. The way I've heard people describe it, your soul is like your mind, will, and emotions. The spirit is that eternal part of us. So my spirit left. The person who's Bruce, mind, will, and emotions, Bruce, carcass down there, man. So my spirit's up here. It's like, didn't even, it's not, we're 3 parts, and that 3rd part was the spirit. And that's the eternal part. That's the part that God puts in us. And so I think that was the, dividing. I think that's my thoughts, man. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I think.
Another thing everyone always describes is that peace that surpasses all understanding. Have you felt that peace on this earth since that experience?
Not like that. Not to that degree. I mean, at different parts, slivers of it for sure. Because Jesus, the Bible says he'll give us peace that surpasses understandings, peace that surpasses our mental understanding. And I, like other people, I'll get glimpses of peace in my life, but never to that degree ever.
How would you describe it like to an earthly mind? What comes close?
I wish I could describe it. I don't have words. It's just like peace times a million. I don't even know how to say it, man. Peace times a million. I can't describe it. It's the best feeling ever. It's the feeling of what you've always wanted. And I don't know if that's just me because of my life or if I don't know. I just know for me, it's when I felt it, it's what I've always wanted. That's all I can tell you. That's the feeling I've always wanted my whole life. That's it. I felt what I've always wanted.
And I think a lot of people try to fill that void, right, with things, hobbies, just chasing
Sex, drugs,
everything.
alcohol, money, everything. Yeah, I've done it, man, my whole life. And nothing touches that. There's nothing to compare to that. But the world says, oh, this will make money will be good, or sex, or this or whatever. But it's like, no, nothing touches that. Everything else is just a cheap substitute compared to God's grace, compared to God's mercy, compared to his peace. And I, that's why it says, that surpasses our mental understanding. It's beyond what we can even comprehend. It's that good. It's that big. I wish I had words. I don't.
Well, coming back from experiencing that, a lot of people kind of almost want to take their own life and get back to that peace, right? It must be hard functioning in this world, knowing what you know. It's kind of like once you've flown first class, it's really hard to settle for coach, right?
It's a big deal. It's a problem. It's an issue. Yeah.
Another thing, interesting thing you said, that you told God that you don't want this. He honored that, and then you immediately left. So the free will aspect of that, but it's interesting. You were talking about Shannon, this persistent baby Christian, right? But in a way, he honored her prayer too.
Right. I know. And my wife would come visit in the hospital, and she'd always be like positive, because that's who she is. She's like always, just be honest. She's the optimist. I'm the pessimist. Just my personality. I mean, it's, we're all wired, right? So that's something I've been wired ever since I've been a toddler. I mean, that's who I am. And I'm guessing that's probably who she was since she was little. And she'd show up, and she'd be like, oh, you're looking good, or if you look like you're feeling better, or what, positive stuff. Right. And I'd be so miserable. I couldn't stand it. And I'd beat for the nurse, and, I'd have the nurse take me into the bathroom, and I'd be in the bathroom away from my wife, just to get away from that positivity. And I'd be in there saying, God, just let me die. I can't take this. Please just let me die. And she'd be out there praying, going, oh God, thank you that Bruce is doing better. Thank you that, all this stuff. And I'd say,
she countered all your negativity.
Exactly, man. That's what I was just going to say. And I tease her, oh, she must be the favorite because I'm still here. God obviously was listening to her prayer.
Man, I love that aspect of the story. God uses people, but it's interesting that he said, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight for it. That there is a little bit of free will. How bad do you want this? It's not passive, right? There's some work. You got to put in the work as well.
That year in the hospital was so bad. I thought it was that year. It's not. It's what you said. After you've tasted that, how can anything else compare? And it can't. And nobody understands unless people. I've talked to other people that have had it, and they say the same thing. It's so hard to be here, man.
Do you feel like you needed that experience? Do you feel like that experience happened for a reason?
Did I need it? Wow. I know I didn't want it. I might have needed it, but I know I didn't want it.
Do you feel like it had to happen for you in order did it change the trajectory of your life? Maybe the way you lived before and after?
I was going to heaven. Dude, I was going to heaven. So I don't think that was it. But as far as what I'm doing, it absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. It was I was in disobedience. God wanted me to go to ministry, and I wouldn't do it. I had my own agenda. I wouldn't do it. And there's so much more to the story, so much more to the backstory. That summer, I was fighting with God the whole summer. 2 days before the accident, I had a big fight with my wife. The day we started that accident, the day I started working on that truck, Tuesday night, the 14th. I came home from work that night, and she had a plate of supper. Kids, I work 12 hours all the time. Kids are already in bed. She saves a plate of supper. She heats it up for me in the microwave. I sit down. This is the day I started working on that truck. The Tuesday, the 14th, the day I started that job. And the accident happened on Thursday, the 16th. I'm sitting out there at my head of the table, my spot, dirty clothes, dirty boots, taking my boots off. And after work at 12 hours of heavy equipment work, man, I'm just tired, dirty, beat, stinky. Want to eat something, take a shower, and go to bed, right? I don't want to talk. I'm just whipped. She's been home with 4 kids all day. What does she want to do? You're married, she wants to talk. So I just want to eat and go to bed. I'm sitting there and she goes into this conversation and she's saying stuff like, I know everybody that knows us know we should be in full-time ministry. The pastor said it. This person said it, blah, blah, blah. We're in disobedience, blah, blah, blah. She was and I just ignored her. I wouldn't even respond. I wouldn't say nothing. I just wanted her to stop. And we'd never had this conversation. We'd not had this specific conversation ever. And she just gets more and more emphatic. And she's saying stuff like, don't go back to work tomorrow. Let today be the last day.
Really?
Let today be the last day. Don't go back to work tomorrow. Let's sell the business. Just be obedient and start the ministry. And we end up getting in a big fight. And I slammed my fist on the table and I yelled at her and I said, woman, shut up. Just leave me alone. She stood up. She put her finger on the end of my nose. And 3 times my wife said to me that night, dang it, Bruce Vanetta, what is it going to take before you're obedient? 3 times. And 2 days later, I found out what it was going to take. So here we are.
I'm curious, when you came back and you told your wife the experience, what you saw, what was her reaction?
Well, when they took me out of the coma the first time, induced coma, I didn't know that I had a breathing tube. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't talk. I was trying to tell them. And the craziest thing was, man, I remember it was my mom, my wife, and my brother. One of my brothers were there. And literally, when they took me out of the coma, the very first thing I wanted to tell everybody was that I saw these 2 huge angels. It was so, like, up above at the scene of the accident. It wasn't a big deal. It was like normal. And I've contemplated, like, why? Why did it not seem like I was just like, oh, look, there's angels down there helping a guy. Big deal. Because in the spirit realm, angels are normal. That's why it seemed normal to me. But as soon as I was back in my body, back in this life, it's like, hey, you guys, I saw 2 8 feet tall angels. They were glowing. They were touching. I was like, I want to talk about the angels. And I'm trying to talk, but I couldn't because I got this stupid breathing tube in. So then I motioned for something to write with. And I just wanted to write the word angel. The very first, after I'm out for the first time and able to communicate, the first thing I want to say is angel. I couldn't write. I couldn't write or read for like 6 months. And I remember I'm holding it was pen or pencil, whatever. And I was just going to write the word angel. I couldn't make the A come from my brain out of my hand. It just wouldn't. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. And I was so aggravated because I wanted so bad to tell them about the angels. So then so that was the first time they'd taken me out. Then they tried taking the tube out and my lungs weren't strong enough. And it was really scary because I couldn't breathe. And so they had to re-intubate me, which is terrifying. It scared them too. I'll guarantee they were all freaking out. So they had to re-intubate me. And, I had all, because it was on breathing machine so long, my lungs had got weak and all that. So, but when I did able to talk, very, very, very first time, I remember my brother Luke was there and my wife, and I told him, you guys, God sent 2 humongous angels to save my life. And it was just like, I don't know. It's very humbling because, you read about angels and you want to believe that God sends them. And either way, it was humbling.
Did those angels communicate with you at all?
Not a word, man. I never even got to see their face. And actually, that's I'm totally okay with that because they're his servants, He sent them. They didn't come on their own accord. He sent them. So it wasn't like you could tell them thank you. You got to tell God thank you, or you know what I mean? I don't know. Sometimes I hear people get weird and they're talking to angels. I'm like, nah, I don't think so, but whatever.
I'm curious about the mechanic friend. Was it Leonard, I think? When you came back, did you share that experience with him, and what was his reaction? Just to the fact that you lived, because he saw it all. He was probably just shocked that you lived another day.
Yeah. Well, because of this crappy world, we got insurance companies, and when you spend that much time in the hospital, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that it costs, somebody's going to have to pay. And so it turned into a big insurance thing. And all of a sudden I couldn't even communicate with that guy anymore. So I did send him a letter. I did try to talk to him a little bit, want to communicate with him afterwards. And because of the lawyers and everything that got involved, and I I've never been able to really communicate. And we reached out and they said, well, someday. His wife responded back and said, oh, because they were family friends forever before that with my mom and dad because they're older, and it was like, maybe when Leonard feels like it, able to talk about it, he'll reach out. I've never heard from him, but I don't hold any ill will towards that man. He didn't do anything wrong. It was my own fault. I shouldn't have gone underneath there with the stupid. I saw it. It's not his fault. It wasn't his fault. It was all meant to be in the end. Whatever.
What about the tunnel? Everybody always describes those tunnels.
Yeah, I know.
What do they
And
look
that's
like?
cool that everybody has the same thing, right? And so doctors, I've looked this up. I've said that to the atheist doctors, like, well, that's because, and then he gives me this thing. And I'm like, oh, that's funny, dude. Then how come I was able to tell people what door they came in when I had no heartbeat and pulse?
Hard to argue that.
Silence, crickets.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all the time somebody can describe exactly what happened on the other side of the hospital, and
That's right.
can't.
That's right.
How do you like what shirt
Yeah,
they're wearing?
and they
what
got
they're
nothing to
saying?
say to that. They got nothing to say because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, now there has to be some kind of other realm other than what we can see or feel, spiritual realm, and it's real.
When you were on the other side, did you have a body? Did you see a body?
No, I don't believe it was just a spirit.
And if you had to compare that environment to this environment, obviously that's supernatural peace that surpasses all understanding. But as far as compared to this world, does this world seem like a dream when you're in that state?
No, I wouldn't say a dream. It was completely disconnected from it. I don't even know how to say it. It was like, so, there's a spot in the Bible or a couple spots where it talks about in heaven, there's no sorrow, there's no suffering, there's no tears, right? There's nothing bad. So let's think about it. Let's say a guy's married like me, has a wife, has kids, he dies. And he's like, oh man, I just left a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, whatever, these kids, they're going to have a rough life now. Who's going to provide for me? You'd be worried about in heaven. So I think somehow God I didn't even know that was me. I was so divorced from this world when I left into the spirit realm. I didn't even know that was me. So then I can go to heaven and be in perfect peace. I'm not worried about my wife. I'm not worried about kids. God didn't even know I was married. I didn't even know I had kids. It's the overriding thing is God. It was his peace in him. I wasn't thinking about that. In fact, I was divorced from it. I was like, it was gone. And I think that's how you can go to heaven, not worry about a wife or kids or anything that you've left or walked away from, because all that the overriding thing was, the presence of God and his peace. That's it. It's
Yeah, because in perfect peace, there's no fear, there's no anxiety. You're in peace. And
no word,
bliss.
nothing. It was perfect. So, like I said, it's exactly I think we're all, as human beings, even if we don't realize it, we're built with a desire to feel that God's peace. And it was like the pieces all fit together. And that I knew when I was in it, this is exactly what I've wanted. This is what I have desired. This is the peace I've desired my whole life, is the only way I can describe it, man. That's why it says peace that doesn't make sense. Peace that surpasses our mental understanding. I can't even convey it to you because it was so big.
And the struggle is how do you get a piece of that peace on earth, like in your life now, and so you can dwell in that 24/7.
That is the struggle.
Because we go in and out of faith all the time, in and out of peace. I mean, you hear bad news, so easy. Everything is fighting for your attention, and fear drives this world. I mean, look at the news, look at everything. Fear-driven world, and it's really hard to be in complete peace in this fear, works-driven world. I mean, everything is performance-driven.
Yep.
And yeah, I can only imagine how hard it is coming back from that perfect peace to all of this.
All of this. And I'm not the only one that feels that. Like you said, you've talked to other people. Everybody I've talked to that really has had that. We all feel the same thing. Why would you want to have this when there's that?
And it's interesting, though, when you dwell in peace, the best that you can, it affects your health. Your health improves. Yep. Everything improves, right?
Yep.
But how easy it is, because, peace and fear are two opposites. When you dwell in fear, it comes with side effects. Yeah. And how important it is to seek first the kingdom of God, his righteousness, and the rest will be added unto you. So just being in his presence. Speaking of him, of the Almighty, what did he sound like?
It sounded familiar.
That's
it's like you knew. You knew him.
How do you describe familiar? It's just familiar.
You knew him. I knew immediately. There was no question. You just knew. And he was so like profoundly stable, calm, wise. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what to say, but it's like even the tone, it was just like you knew that you knew. There was no question. You didn't have to, I didn't have to, oh, was this God? It's like, oh, no, I knew that I knew. No, you just knew. Even when he talked through her, and that's what I believe the Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit lives inside of believers, the Bible says, and the Holy Spirit was then now talking through her. And even though I knew it was her voice, I knew that I knew that I knew it wasn't her thought. It was his spirit speaking through her to say what I needed to hear at that moment to get me to stay, because honestly, I wasn't going to stay for me. Never. Would never stay for me. Never.
And a baby Christian, right? She was just a baby Christian.
Yeah. I love that.
Stepped in, and when God is love, when you abide in love, you abide in God, and he can speak through you. And it's interesting that she walked in. And how cool is it? I got to talk to her just random on the live stream. She shared her testimony. It was a powerful testimony too. But she happened to mention your story, and wow. And what a small world that we live in. But since then, so this experience happened, was it like 18 years ago?
Yeah.
Have you had any supernatural encounters since then?
Oh, lots. Yeah. As we've traveled around and done ministry, we've seen God do amazing things.
Share one or two big ones, like flat absolutely has to hear these, or one or two.
Oh, I mean, I could say in plural, we've seen God, like, as far as just like say, like praying for people and seeing God do stuff, and nothing. It's not like my purse, but just, it has nothing to do with me. God's a healer. He's the one. But we've seen people healed of cancer. We've seen deaf ears open. We've seen blind eyes open. We've seen people get out of wheelchairs. I mean, I've seen it.
Bruce, I'm curious. And it's interesting just being in the Christian circles. Why is it so much easier for an unbeliever to receive healing than a Christian? It seems like it to me.
Yeah, I think, okay, this is my thought. I've really contemplated that a lot. I think God does it for that unbeliever to show them he's real. I think that's what he's doing. He's making a statement to them, and he's showing them this is real. This is real. But then as we progress in our faith, now he's going to say, okay, you want this, you want that in your life. You've got these needs. Well, it's you're not going to be treated like a baby anymore. Now you got to be treated like a mature adult. And, I honored your baby, I dealt with you immaturely, or, I dealt, you know what I mean? He knows where we're at. And so he's like, I'm going to show you this is real. I'm going to show you this is real. But as you mature me, now I'm going to require faith for you to get healed, because I'm real. But the baby Christian doesn't, or the unbeliever doesn't know he's real. So he like goes, look, bing, I'm real. Wake up call.
Yeah, and to keep that healing, you got to renew your mind, right? It's a process. It's time. Information without application is just entertainment. Ignorance is not bliss.
That's right.
And so, yeah, and it's kind of like when somebody's in darkness, light shines brighter there. So you see a lot more miracles in third world countries and dark places of the world.
Well, here's the other reason why I'm convinced, because I pray for so many people, and I've been doing it for 18 years. I'm analytical. I want to know, okay, how can I get the better results, right? And so why is it better in third world countries? Well, again, he's proven himself as real. But the other factor there, third world countries, we think westernized nations, we're so smart and everything. Here's the problem. Westernized nations, we deny the existence of God. We deny the existence of the devil. We say that stuff isn't real. We got hospitals. You go to third world country, they got a witch doctor that lives in that town. And that person that lives in that village knows darn well, if they go to that witch doctor and they give enough money, just about anything will happen. And they know it. They know it. So you don't have to tell them that the spirit realm is real. They know the spirit realm is real. You just got to tell them Jesus is the head of all that, and they can get a hold of that. And they're like, oh man, okay, I'll go with you, Jesus. Bam, bam, bam. Things happen like crazy because they know the spirit realm is real.
Yeah, well, and in third world countries, I come from Ukraine. I grew up in that side of the world. Faith is like a muscle. You got to exercise it. In the first world countries, you don't have to have much faith to get by.
That's right. Exactly.
You really don't. You have money problems, you can take a loan. You don't have food, you can go to a soup kitchen. Yep. There are a lot of them here. In third world countries, if God doesn't show up,
you're going to die. You're going to die.
Big difference. So faith muscle is totally different. And like you said, yeah, they believe in that. They don't
They
have
believe
to
in the spirit realm, even if they do animalistic, sacrifices, witchcraft, any of it, Buddha, it doesn't matter. It proves that they believe in the spirit realm. So then that's the first step. Here we're like, oh, I didn't believe God's real. Devil's not real. That's for dumb people. The devil just sits back and he's like, I got these guys fooled because they don't even think I'm real.
Yeah. How can you fight an enemy that you don't even know is real?
Yep. So I think that's one of the big keys why we see so much in other third world countries. I've been to Central America 12 times, Africa, here, there, whatever. But yeah, I mean, God, but he does amazing stuff here in the United States. I mean, we don't have to go to third world countries to see him do a miracle because we've seen him do lots and lots of them right here. But this is the thing, Vlad, all these earthly miracles are going to come to nothing. All the blind eyes that were open in the Bible, all the deaf ears, all those people, they all died again. 8 people raised from the dead in the Bible other than Jesus. He's number 9. All the other 8, just normal people like me. I'm like one of those 8 people. Guess what? They all died again. I'm going to die again. This miracle is a big miracle that he brought me back to life for people that are alive. But I'm going to die again. And this miracle is going to come to nothing other than the power of the testimony. The only miracle that lasts, the only miracle that counts is when somebody receives Jesus, Lord and Savior, because then when they die, they get to spend eternity with him. That's the only miracle that counts. And so, I mean, yeah, I'd like to see people get healed, but man, I hate to see somebody get healed from cancer, still die and go to hell. Then what purpose did it do?
Well, and I like what you said. So the best day of your life as a Christian is dying, right? But for those that are watching that are not believers, dying may be the worst day of your life, right?
Hey, you know what? You just said for those that aren't believers, you would not believe how many believers feel the same way. A lot of believers get mad at me when I say the best day of your life is when you're going to die. People get mad. That is the most common reaction. They're like, what? What do you mean? I think that's what it means the Bible says about being eternally minded, right? That's what we're supposed to be thinking about. That's eternally minded. I mean, we're supposed to be thinking about, yeah. I've got my own struggles. I got my own battles, but believing that God is real, that heaven real isn't one of them. I can't even struggle with that because I've tasted it. So, I mean, I didn't taste heaven, but out of body and all that,
Well, Bruce, you've been so generous with your time, but in closing, if someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Oh, you know what? People can go to our website, sweetbreadministries.com. There's contact stuff there. Written a couple books. People can hear about the ministry. That Saved by Angels was the first book we came out with. And actually the full title is Saved by Angels, to share how God talks to everyday people like me, like you, and then the second book was called is called A Miraculous Life, on the play of the words that God wants all Christians like Shannon to live a miraculous life and be part of what he's doing on this earth. And so, again, I'm always like this. Like I said before, I want to spend the rest of my life telling people what God did. And so whether it's to a group of 5 people somewhere, or a group of 10,000 people somewhere, or on this, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll do it, and just tell people that what happened so that they can, I guess, make their own choices, make their own decisions and do, here's the information. You get to make a choice what you're going to do with it. We all do. We all get to make those choices.
You got to think for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, before I disconnect, I looked at my notes and I saw the name Bruce Carlson. And it's interesting that God tapped on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And he purchased that airline ticket. And back then, it's still a lot of money today.
Yeah.
And in faith, he flew out there, which reminds me, I just recently interviewed somebody. And this guy wanted to take his own life. He was just sitting on the side of the road. And this lady, she looked like she was from a different side of the town. She didn't belong in that part of town because the guy was living in the poor side. And she was like inching in the car, trying to look lost. And then she rolls the window down. She goes, "Michael, are you Michael?" He's like, "Yes." Like, "Well, the Lord told me." So I drove 45 minutes out of the way because the Lord told me. And she pretty much just read his mail, right? And I thank God for people like Bruce Carlson, for people like Shannon. God can tap on your shoulder. And I'm thinking, she had to drive 45 minutes out of the way. And this gentleman had to had to purchase an airline ticket. There was nobody nearby that God could tap on somebody's shoulder and say, "Hey."
It's interesting you said it, because the reason why he said he didn't buy the ticket the first day is because that's exactly what he said to himself. there's got to be people that can pray for him in Wisconsin. He goes to a church. That's exactly what he said to himself. He told me that. That's exactly what he said. There's somebody in Wisconsin that can pray for him. I don't know why God picked him. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. But I do believe this. I believe that he wouldn't have come, I would have died. Well, I mean, physically that was obvious, but what I'm saying is I don't believe God was going to send another person. We read in the Bible, there's times in the Bible where God tells somebody to do something, and if they don't do it, he'll send somebody else because he wants it done. Okay, you're not going to do it? Fine, I'll send somebody else. But there are times in the Bible where he tells somebody to do something. If they don't do it, it doesn't happen. And you go, wow, that's weird. But it's what he just, there's instances in the Bible like that. So obviously that's the way it rolls. So I feel like if he wouldn't have come, I would have died. It was him.
His obedience saved your life.
Yeah.
Interesting. You said something about if God spoke to you to do something and you're not doing it, he will use somebody else. And I have an example like that in my life where he spoke to me to do something and I didn't do it. And years later, I saw somebody else do the exact same thing that he asked me to do. Yep. And that's when I was like, okay, I won't make that mistake because what he said will have to come to pass either through you or somebody else.
Yeah, there's those times in the Bible where he does that. And then there's other times where he says, okay, go do this. But if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. And it just makes you go, I don't, again, he's bigger than our thoughts. So I don't understand, but
it's all very interesting. Well, one thing I know for sure, obedience is very important and we are to be obedient. Be faithful in little and more will be added unto you. And Bruce, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Highlight of my day, or my week, really. Just connecting with you before the phone call. And it's amazing how many people we know throughout our life, all these people that we rub shoulders with, and they're all connected.
Yeah, that absolutely shocked me when we were talking at the beginning. It's like, for me to just come from there last week and you to say you lived there in that house.
Yes.
Place for a year. I'm like, what?
For those of you watching, I used to work for this motorcycle guy, well known. I was his cameraman early, like right after high school. I was working with him for a whole year, and I got to know him really well, his family. And Bruce, the reason why you postponed the interview till today is because you were there at his place. Unfortunately, he's no longer alive, but you were dealing with his son, working together, and what a small world, because it's not nearby. You live in Wisconsin. This was in North Carolina.
Right. Exactly.
It's all, and then the Shannon connection and everything else. It's amazing. Yeah. This is not an accident. Bruce.
No, absolutely not.
I feel like I made a friend for life. I love this. Thank you so much for your time. We'll stay in touch.
Excellent. Thanks, Vlad.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, can you do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel? And also want to invite you to join our free private community with thousands of members at godsvoicefamily.com. And lastly, if you thought this testimony was powerful, wait until you check out what I have for you next. It should be on the screen right now. Go ahead, click on that video, and I'll see you there.